India has developed weapons of mass destruction in the form of nuclear and chemical weapons and is known to possess nuclear weapons currently. Although India has not released any official statements about the size of its nuclear arsenal, recent estimates suggest that India has 160 nuclear weapons and has produced enough weapons-grade plutonium for up to 200 nuclear weapons. In 1999, India was estimated to have 800 kilograms, 1,800 pounds, of separated reactor-grade plutonium, with a total amount of 8,300 kilograms, 18,300 pounds, of civilian plutonium, enough for approximately 1,000 nuclear weapons. India has conducted nuclear weapons tests in a pair of series, namely Pokhran 1 and Pokhran 2. India is a member of 3 multilateral export control regimes: the Missile Technology Control Regime, Wassenaar Arrangement, and Australia Group. It has signed and ratified the Biological Weapons Convention and the Chemical Weapons Convention. India is also a subscribing state to the Hague Code of Conduct. India has signed neither the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty nor the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty, considering both to be flawed and discriminatory. India previously possessed chemical weapons, but voluntarily destroyed its entire stockpile in 2009, one of the 7 countries to meet the OPCW extended deadline. India maintains a no-first-use nuclear policy and has developed a nuclear triad capability as a part of its minimum credible deterrence doctrine. As early as June 26, 1946, Jawaharlal Nehru, soon to be India's first Prime Minister, announced, "As long as the world is constituted as it is, every country will have to devise and use the latest devices for its protection. I have no doubt India will develop her scientific researches, and I hope Indian scientists will use the atomic force for constructive purposes. But if India is threatened, she will inevitably try to defend herself by all means at her disposal." Nehru pursued a policy of formally foregoing nuclear weapons while at the same time constructing a civilian nuclear energy program, and by extension the capability to make a nuclear bomb. This policy was motivated by a conventional weapons superiority over its rivals Pakistan and China. India built its first research reactor in 1956 and its first plutonium reprocessing plant by 1964. India's nuclear program can trace its origins to March 1944, and its 3-stage efforts in technology were established by Homi Jahangir Bhabha when he founded the Nuclear Research Center, the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. India's loss to China in a brief Himalayan border war in October 1962 provided the New Delhi government impetus for developing nuclear weapons as a means of deterring potential Chinese aggression. By 1964, India was in a position to develop nuclear weapons. Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri opposed developing nuclear weapons but fell under intense political pressure, including elements within the ruling Indian National Congress. India was also unable to obtain security guarantees from either the United States or the Soviet Union. As a result, Shastri announced that India would pursue the capability of what it called peaceful nuclear explosions that could be weaponized in the future. India first tested a nuclear device in 1974, codenamed Smiling Buddha, under Prime Minister Indira Gandhi as a peaceful nuclear explosion. The test used plutonium produced in the Canadian-supplied Cirrus reactor, and raised concerns that nuclear technology supplied for peaceful purposes could be diverted to weapons purposes. This also stimulated the early work of the Nuclear Suppliers Group. During the 1970s and the 1980s, Prime Ministers Indira Gandhi, Morarji Desai, and Rajiv Gandhi opposed weaponizing its nuclear program beyond PNEs and theoretical research. In 1982, Indira Gandhi refused to allow the Defense Research and Development Organization to develop active nuclear weapons, but also approved the Integrated Guided Missile Development Program that would develop missiles to deliver a nuclear warhead if India developed one. India also supported international nuclear nonproliferation and arms control efforts. The situation changed again in the late 1980s after the 1987 brass tacks crisis and the beginning of the Pakistani nuclear weapons program. In 1989, Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi gave Defense Secretary Naresh Chandra approval to develop the bomb. Chandra continued the program through successive governments in the 1990s after Gandhi lost power in the 1989 general election. India most likely completed weaponized nuclear warheads around 1994. India performed further nuclear tests in 1998, codenamed Operation Shakti, under Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. In 1998, as a response to the continuing tests, the United States and Japan imposed sanctions on India, which have since been lifted. R. Chidambaram, who headed India's Pokhran 2 nuclear tests, said in a 1999 interview with the Press Trust of India that India is capable of producing a neutron bomb. India has a declared nuclear no-first-use policy and is in the process of developing a nuclear doctrine based on credible minimum deterrence. In August 1999, the Indian government released a draft of the doctrine which asserts that nuclear weapons are solely for deterrence and that India will pursue a policy of retaliation only. The document also maintains that India will not be the first to initiate a nuclear first strike, but will respond with punitive retaliation should deterrence fail, and that decisions to authorize the use of nuclear weapons would be made by the Prime Minister or his designated successors. According to the NRDC, despite the escalation of tensions between India and Pakistan in 2001 to 2002, India remained committed to its nuclear no first use policy. India's Strategic Nuclear Command was formally established in 2003, with an Indian Air Force officer, Air Marshal Tej Mohan Asthana, as the Commander-in-Chief. The Joint Services SNC is the custodian of all of India's nuclear weapons, missiles and assets. It is also responsible for executing all aspects of India's nuclear policy. However, the civil leadership, in the form of the CCS, Cabinet Committee on Security, is the only body authorized to order a nuclear strike against another offending strike. The National Security Advisor Shiv Shankar Menon reiterated a policy of no first use against nuclear weapon states and non-use against non-nuclear weapon states in a speech on the occasion of Golden Jubilee celebrations of National Defence College in New Delhi on October 21, 2010, a doctrine Menon said reflected India's strategic culture, with its emphasis on minimal deterrence. In April 2013, Shyam Saran, convener of the National Security Advisory Board, affirmed that regardless of the size of a nuclear attack against India, be it a miniaturized version or a big missile, India will retaliate massively to inflict unacceptable damage. In 2016, Defense Minister Manohar Parrikar questioned the no first use policy, asking why India should bind itself when it is a responsible nuclear power. Later he clarified that this was his personal opinion. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh in 2019 said that in the future, India's no first use policy might change depending upon the circumstances. In a January 2022 statement, however, the Ministry of External Affairs reiterated India's doctrine of maintaining a credible minimum deterrence based on a no first use posture and non-use of nuclear weapons against non-nuclear weapon states. Nuclear-armed fighter bombers were India's first and only nuclear-capable strike force until 2003, when the country's first land-based nuclear ballistic missiles were fielded. In addition to their ground attack role, it is believed that the Dassault Mirage 2000s and Seepcat Jaguars of the Indian Air Force are able to provide a secondary nuclear strike role. The Seepcat Jaguar was designed to be able to carry and deploy nuclear weapons, and the Indian Air Force has identified the jet as being capable of delivering Indian nuclear weapons. The most likely delivery method would be the use of bombs that are free-falling and unguided. 3 airbases with 4 squadrons of Mirage 2000H, about 16 aircraft with 16 bombs, from 1st and 7th Squadrons of the 40th Wing at Maharajpur Air Force Station, and Jaguars/IB, about 32 aircraft with 32 bombs from 1 squadron each at Ambala Air Force Station and Gorakhpur Air Force Station, aircraft, are believed to be assigned the nuclear strike role. The estimated 68 nuclear warheads of land-based nuclear weapons of India are under the control of and deployed by the Strategic Forces Command, using a variety of both vehicles and launching silos. They currently consist of 6 different types of ballistic missiles: the Agni I, the Agni II, Agni III, Agni IV, Agni V, Agni P, and the Army's variant of the Prithvi missile family, the Prithvi I. However, the Prithvi missiles are less useful for delivering nuclear weapons because they have a shorter range and must be deployed very close to the India-Pakistan border. Additional variants of the Agni missile series have recently been inducted, including the most recent, the Agni IV and the Agni V, which is currently being deployed. Agni Vi is also under development, with an estimated range of 8,000 to 12,000 kilometers and features such as multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, MIRVs, or maneuverable re-entry vehicles, MARVs. The Indian Navy has developed 2 sea-based delivery systems for nuclear weapons, completing Indian ambitions for a nuclear triad, which may have been deployed in 2015. The first is a submarine-launched system consisting of at least 4 6,000-ton, nuclear-powered, ballistic missile submarines of the Arihant class. The first vessel, INS Arihant, was commissioned in August 2016. She is the first nuclear-powered submarine to be built by India. A CIA report claimed that Russia provided technological aid to the naval nuclear propulsion program. The submarines will be armed with up to 12 Sagarika, K-15, missiles armed with nuclear warheads. Sagarika is a submarine-launched ballistic missile with a range of 700 kilometers. This missile has a length of 8.5 meters, weighs 7 tons and can carry a payload of up to 500 kilograms. Sagarika has already been test-fired from an underwater pontoon, but now DRDO is planning a full-fledged test of the missile from a submarine, and for this purpose may use the services of the Russian Navy. India's DRDO is also working on a submarine-launched ballistic missile version of the Agni 3 missile, known as the Agni 3 SL. According to Indian defense sources, the Agni 3 SL will have a range of 3,500 kilometers, 2,200 miles. The new missile will complement the older and less capable Sagarika submarine-launched ballistic missiles. However, the Arihant-class ballistic missile submarines will be only capable of carrying a maximum of 4 Agni 3 SL. The second is a ship-launched system based around the short-range ship-launched Dhanush ballistic missile, a variant of the Prithvi missile. It has a range of around 300 kilometers. In the year 2000, the missile was test-fired from INS Subhadra, a Sukanya-class patrol craft. INS Subhadra was modified for the test and the missile was launched from the reinforced helicopter deck. The results were considered partially successful. In 2004, the missile was again tested from INS Subhadra and this time the results were reported successful. In December 2005 the missile was tested again, but this time from the destroyer INS Rajput. The test was a success with the missile hitting the land-based target. India is not a signatory to either the NPT or the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, CTBT, but did accede to the Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty in October 1963. India is a member of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, and 4 of its 17 nuclear reactors are subject to IAEA safeguards. India announced its lack of intention to accede to the NPT as late as 1997 by voting against the paragraph of a General Assembly resolution which urged all non-signatories of the treaty to accede to it at the earliest possible date. India voted against the UN General Assembly resolution endorsing the CTBT, which was adopted on September 10, 1996. India objected to the lack of provision for universal nuclear disarmament within a time-bound framework. India also demanded that the treaty ban laboratory simulations. In addition, India opposed the provision in Article 14 of the CTBT that requires India's ratification for the treaty to enter into force, which India argued was a violation of its sovereign right to choose whether it would sign the treaty. In early February 1997, Foreign Minister I.K. Gujral reiterated India's opposition to the treaty, saying that India favors any step aimed at destroying nuclear weapons, but considers that the treaty in its current form is not comprehensive and bans only certain types of tests. In August 2008, the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, approved safeguards agreement with India under which the former will gradually gain access to India's civilian nuclear reactors. In September 2008, the Nuclear Suppliers Group granted India a waiver allowing it to access civilian nuclear technology and fuel from other countries. The implementation of this waiver makes India the only known country with nuclear weapons which is not a party to the NPT but is still allowed to carry out nuclear commerce with the rest of the world. Since the implementation of the NSG waiver, India has signed nuclear deals with several countries including France, United States, Mongolia, Namibia, Kazakhstan and Australia, while the framework for similar deals with Canada and the United Kingdom are also being prepared. We hope nuclear weapons never gets used and good sense prevail for all humanity. Hopefully one day we all can live in harmony. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Thank you.